Getting out of an abusive relationship early makes a huge difference.
And I'm proud to say I did come in as a victim, but I am a survivor.
Then I could see my mom. My mom was walking toward us. And I got excited. And I was like, there's my mom. And then he didn't stop.
I'm trying to keep it together, I said. I gave in to the tears. And I hated that.
It's not necessarily the easiest process. It's not necessarily the prettiest process, but it is the most effective process. Like, you can do this. I'm going to tell you 100% you can do this, and you're so worth it to do this.
I'm sure losing any child is a real arrow through your heart, but you know, she was great. She was a friend and a family member and our daughter.
It feels just as good the 10th time as it did the first time, to have one of your citizens that you're out there protecting walk up and tell you thank you.
There is one thing stronger in me than fear, and that's my determination. Welcome back. This is Jen Lee, the creator and host of I Need Blue, Survivors Talk Surviving. Visit www.ineedblue.net for additional stories. As you listen, if the message moves you, share it with friends and family. The more we share, the more we learn, the more we help. Please note, I Need Blue does contain stories which feature graphic content and could be triggering. Please seek help if needed, and remember, you always come first. Today's episode speaks on behalf of those children who search for their forever home, who have been removed from their familiar environment for one reason or another and placed into a different permanent or temporary family environment. The hope is always that the new home will be a better fit for raising that child. However, situations do occur where the child is put in danger. I would like to welcome Jaci Cortez. She was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. She was in foster care from ages 4 through 21. Now, as an advocate, she became the founder and executive director of Sunflower Foster Youth Investments, where the mission is providing foster youth and former youth in care with a network of support and resources they need. In addition to holding this position, she is attending CSULA studying communications. To learn more, visit www.sunfloweryouth.org. My second guest is Jayne Amelia Larson. She is a volunteer for CASA of Los Angeles. Also, she has a podcast, Bonus Babies, where you will find several episodes like the one you will hear today. Bonus Babies can be found at bonusbabies.org. This episode will be released in May, where it is National Foster Care Month, which is an initiative of the Children's Bureau. Each May, we take time to acknowledge foster parents, family members, volunteers, mentors, policymakers, child welfare professionals, and other members of the community who help children and youth and foster care find permanent homes and connections. So to all of you who have contributed to the health and well-being of children, we thank you. Let's get started with today's episode. Ladies, welcome and thank you for being my guest today.
Hi, this is Jayne Amelia Larson, and I'm a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate volunteer with youth in foster care. And that means I'm kind of like the eyes and ears of the court for foster youth. And I also have a podcast about my work as a CASA, in which I talk to kids and therapists and social workers and attorneys and everybody to give a 360 view of what's happening in foster care today, which is not great.
Thank you. I really look forward to the insight with all of the knowledge and firsthand experience you have as a CASA. Now, I would like to welcome my special guest, Jaci. I want to thank you again for being here and sharing your story with us.
Thank you for doing this. I know there's like 1,000 issues that is wrong with the world. As you both have kind of mentioned, right? Foster care is like at the bottom of that list, or sometimes it's not even on that list. Unless you have experienced it, you don't really think about it.
I am one of those people who is not familiar with the foster care system, which is why it really kind of made me reach out to Jayne. I know she, as a CASA, has a lot of experience with the foster care system and helping children and youths. Really wanted to educate myself more on the process. I have a girlfriend who has 2 foster children, and I just know on occasion she has made little comments about how the system is broken. And so I really wanted to spotlight the whole system to people like me who honestly, we don't even think about it. So I really want you to kind of start from your childhood and share your story with us and then where you are today.
I guess my story really started because my mom was a immigrant from Guatemala, and she got arrested for being in the, as they say, wrong place, wrong time, right? She was young, and there's consequences to some decisions, obviously, right? So yeah, since I was born here, they decided I were to be put in foster care because I was 4 years old when they arrested my mom and decided to deport her. And my grandma didn't have papers either at the time, so she wasn't able to get me because she was afraid to get deported as well. So one of my aunts decided to pick me up one day, and my life changed forever, and not exactly in a good way, unfortunately. So she adopted me when I was 5. I couldn't talk because I went through a traumatic experience. An older family member who was an uncle, I don't know the correct term, but he had touched me inappropriately, and I just, stopped talking. So yeah, she adopted me, and everyone praised her for it. Everyone saw her as this amazing, person for adopting a child no one wanted. But that's not true. My mom wanted me, but she wasn't allowed to take me with her. She had all her legal documents. She had, everything. All she wanted was me. But again, since I was born here, they said, no, you can't take her. So my aunt taught me how to, in her words, be a woman, right? She taught me how to clean and cook. And right away, I've been cleaning and cooking since I was 5. She had a son, and I helped raise him. So I was changing diapers, feeding, making sure, like, when he cried, to stop crying, right? So I technically been taking care of kids my whole life. And yeah, but that wasn't the worst part. Her oldest son was my main abuser, sexually, physically, mentally. He was the person that was in charge of disciplining me. I remember when I would get homework wrong, I would get beat, as they call discipline. But I think that definitely there's a difference, between discipline and abuse. But everyone can interpret that differently based on how they're raised. I remember before having a person to discipline me, I loved school. I was like a nerd. And then I just didn't want to get hit, but that wasn't good enough. I would get hit for no reason if I had a bad day, if I didn't do my chores fast enough. I remember hating animals because I had to clean up after their poops and stuff. And I was technically their slave. And since she was friends with the social worker that was on the case, nothing got done.
That's frustrating.
There was signs, that there was abuse going on.
JC, I know you said at age 5 you had stopped talking. At this point, how are you learning to communicate?
I had to go through speech therapy for a couple years. And to me, I thought it was normal. But then once I was able to make friends in school and talking to others, I realized that wasn't normal. But yeah, that type of abuse happened for years. My aunt who adopted me had found a husband through church. He had touched me inappropriately twice. The last time, I was just so mad. I just had been tired of being people's toy. With my main abuser, who was my cousin. Yeah, cousin. Sorry, I'm not really good with family trees. I fought back once, and he knocked me out, and he did his thing. And my aunts new husband tried to penetrate for the third time, I was so mad. I grabbed my pocket knife and I grabbed his bottom private part, and I told him, if you ever touch me again, I'm going to chop it off, because no, you're not supposed to do this. And he never did again. But when I tried to tell my adopted mom what was happening, she said I was lying and to pray and for God forgive me and all this stuff. And I was like, why would I lie? But that I think people choose to believe the narrative that benefits them. Later on, I learned that she was like a victim of a lot of different abuses. So to her, it was just like normal. Her oldest son as well went through stuff. Like, that's not an excuse to hurt people, So I went through hell. I used to call my adopted mom the devil. She and her, technically my own family, right, put me through some stuff that I just don't think any kid should go through. But it is what it is. That's life sometimes. You just gotta figure out a way to escape, right? And that's what I did. I tried to run away a couple times. I remember once was through school. I took like this giant backpack, and the counselor told me to wait. They called my adoptive mom, and she acted like she had no idea why I wanted to run away. I got beat. So I was like, that's not going to work, right? The second time was like through church, but the church lady kind of like returned me. So I was like, that's not going to work either. So they took me out of school because they realized they couldn't keep me quiet anymore. And my discipliner, my main abuser, he told me, like, if you ever tell anyone, I'm going to kill you. And I was like scared because I knew he was stronger than me, right? Because I was like this scrawny little thing, but I knew how to get out of there. So I remember being homeschooled. I pretended like I was going to go buy something next door, and I just ran. I dumped my books like a few blocks away, and I just ran to Nurse Cop Station, and I told them everything that happened, and they're very, very, very helpful. But yeah, I remember like crying and like.
Yeah, that's scary.
Like a sense was like, if they can't help me, I'm screwed, But there was one cop that was super helpful. He was new, and he's like, I don't care if you have to sleep on my couch. I'm not going to let you go back there. They bought me like McDonald's or something, so I was starving. Very helpful, the two. But, they couldn't keep me. So they returned me to the house, but they're like, we're going to come pick you up tomorrow, okay? And I was like, okay. I was like, oh my God, what are they going to say, right? So they said that I witnessed like a fight or something, and that's why I was with them, because I was a witness to someone getting like beat up or something. So they didn't question it. They didn't like think anything. But yeah, I was taken away. But at that time, I don't know if DCFS didn't have as much funding or something. So I had to spend the first night in foster care in their office. They had like a little like room where the kids would sleep on the couch or something. Yeah, I was put in foster care like around, I want to say like 13 and a half. I was kind of happy because like I'm away from those people. DCFS plan was reunification. I had to see them 6 months. They had dropped charges because apparently there was not enough evidence. They had established that I was a liar or something like that. It just broke me to the point where like I just wanted to die. I couldn't hurt myself because I was brought up very religious. I would just pray every time I got beat, every time, an abuse happened. I just prayed, like, just take me away. But that never happened. Foster care, it taught me that documentation matters. It taught me that there's no justice. But I think that everything, I don't say happens for a reason, because there shouldn't be a reason for someone to go through that. If I can go back, I wouldn't change anything, because it makes me a better person and open-minded, but also like protective of myself and others. After foster care, I decided I was going to let no one hurt me again. And yeah, so far I've been able to keep that promise to myself.
When a child goes to one home, chances are that's not going to be their forever home. They're going to go from home to home.
Honestly, I got moved around a couple times, like 10, 12 times. One seemed like ideal, but when they found that I was gay, they kicked me out. And then the last one was amazing, but the last 2 years of foster care, it was a great home, but I think it came a little too late, to be real. Amazing family, amazing home, beyond supportive, loving. I remember having a conversation with them, and they're like, if we could have got you when you were 4, we would have treated you like the princess you were. And I just remember crying and telling them it's okay, you know, that would have been amazing, but it didn't happen. But I'm grateful that you guys are in my life now. It was the first time that I really remember feeling like having a family. I didn't get adopted again, and the reunification didn't. They sent me back once, but I told them if they left me there, I was going to kill myself. So I was in a mental institute for a while when I was younger. So yeah, they canceled the reunification.
I just want to make sure that your listeners hear, Jen, that for JC, she was in many, many foster homes. A lot of people think that a kid gets removed from their biological home or whatever environment they're in, and then they get moved to foster care, to a foster home, and then they stay there and everything works out. But that is actually, more often than not, it does not happen at all that way. Kids can go, as JC did, from home to home to home, from school to school to school, and they never have any stability. Never, there's no consistency. There's no safe forever home for them.
So I'm curious, in JC's situation, there were signs where she needed to be removed and she wasn't. What is the determining factor between when a child is going to be moved?
I don't understand like the procedures of how someone becomes foster parents or adoptive parents, to be real. I know that DCFS or whoever's in charge of child welfare, I know I'm not the first to have struggled because they dropped the ball.
There's all different cases. There's all different scenarios. What I think is important about JC's case is that she saved herself by going to a police station and asking to be rescued. And that was her third attempt for help. The first 2 adults whom she spoke with ignored her. And it wasn't until she got a good cop who believed her was she removed from the home that was so hurtful to her. Now, unfortunately, that wasn't the end of it because, as JC said, in California, the courts are mandated to try to reunify with the family. So there was an attempt to do that. But again, for JC, she made it clear, if you make me stay with them, I'm going to kill myself. So she saved herself again. As JC has said, unfortunately, when she did finally find a great foster home that was right for her, she was already a young adult and she aged out. And I didn't really answer your question, Jen, because it is such a complicated process about how kids get removed from their homes, how it happens, why it happens, who gets believed, who gets taken to jail, who gets prosecuted, where that kid goes. Each situation is different. Usually it's not good. There are a lot of mistakes that are made, even by well-intentioned people, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I don't think the system wants to be neglectful, but it has been, you know, proven time and time again that they have been.
Yeah, and I think the perfect example is when you talked about your caseworker who was a friend of your aunt's, and she just overlooked everything and she didn't truly investigate. If she'd spoken to you for any length of time, she would have realized that you were talking the truth. You were speaking the truth, that you were abused and neglected, treated really, really badly. She should have removed you from the home. What happens with caseworkers? They're supposed to have about 30 kids. They usually have twice or triple that. There aren't enough hours in the day for them to do their work properly. And they're not paid well either. Even when they start really hopeful and they want to make changes, great changes, they often end up burning out really quickly and not doing their job.
Thank you for sharing that information. JC, I have to ask, have you reunited with your mom and your family?
Yeah, after foster care, they found me through Facebook. It was an interesting encounter. Didn't know my mom or my grandma for many years, you know, when they claimed to be my fam, you know, that never stopped looking and loving me. I was pretty pissed, but then once I met with them and saw the evidence, I was able to not just find like closure, I think help them forgive themselves, because I know they had a tough time as well. So I couldn't be mad at them, or I got lucky because not everyone has like family members that genuinely care for them. Most of mine were interesting, for lack of better words. But my mom, grandma, and brother, they never gave up looking for me. I think that's what made our reunification, like unofficially, because it was after foster care. I think it made it better because I was able to heal and they were able to heal as well, and we still have a relationship. I think for people listening, it's important to know that when you foster or adopt, we're more than just our background. These kids, including myself when I was a child and a young adult, we went through stuff, not because we asked for it or because we were troubled kids. These adults chose us to do harm to us. I don't understand how society judges us because of these monsters' decision, but it is what it is, right? I just want listeners and people to know if they've ever been hurt or abused or anything negative, to never give up, because nothing lasts forever. Like, that abuse will end one day, and then one day, hopefully, right, if it's not too late, you can find the light and help others, or you can help heal and love yourself. Because I know that for years I was filled with hate and hurt, and I wouldn't wish it to my worst enemy. Like, I even forgave my abuse. I just didn't want to be angry anymore. Forgiving them isn't, I don't want to say it was like excusing them, because what they did was wrong, but I had to do it so I can move on. I missed being me, and being me was just being a nice person. But again, being nice doesn't mean that you're weak. Foster kids are more than their experience. It's a label that sticks with us, unfortunately. A survivor, yeah. People who know me for more than that, and that's what I think listeners need to know. Foster care is just a location that we were put or placed in. We didn't have stability, but that shouldn't define us, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, we get to decide as adults who and what we become, and most of us, we continue to help others. And if that's not amazing, then I don't know what is. I'm grateful for every step I had to take to have the mindset I have now.
Such words of wisdom and strength. Thank you, Jaci. Would you like to tell us about your nonprofit, Sunflower Foster Youth Investment?
I started a nonprofit to invest in foster youth because I saw that a lot of us are falling in between the cracks. And there's these age restrictions, right, which makes sense because of funding. But I don't think there's an age limit for success. That's why I started Sunflower Foster Youth Investment. So any youth over the age of 16, if they have a goal or dream, my team, we're going to help them get there. Because at the end of the day, all that's out there is these negative statistics. And it's just like, again, we're more than that. I think the most positive one is 3% go to college. That is not positive. So Sunflower Foster Youth Investment was really created because I just got tired of seeing these young adults and these kids just being thrown around in a negative light. And we make sure that it's realistic. I know a lot of youth join programs because there's a need, but there's a lot of requirements that they are forced to do. And that's not our program. Our program meets them where they're at. And the only requirement, again, is that they were in foster care, even for a day, and that they're 16 and older. I wanted to make sure that our next generation of foster youth had a better chance than my generation. And I'm not saying my generation wasn't good. I think that DCFS has created updates to their programs, right? Like, there's more LGBT friendly stuff and undocumented resources and all that, right? So they have improved, but I think it still needs to do better. Sunflower Foster Youth Investment wants to help DCFS fill in those gaps, because I know they can't do it all, Like I said, we appreciate their effort, but we know that our youth need more support. They're the kids of the future, not just something society sees as a burden.
That's wonderful, and I'll definitely put the word out for you as well. I have the privilege of being able to have this conversation with you, the encouraging words that you are providing others as well. I think it's amazing. I truly appreciate you being here today. I thank you for all you do. And I know from listening to your story on Jayne's podcast, Bonus Babies, you're quite remarkable, and I'm honored that you are here today.
And you are truly a terrific advocate, Jaci. You really are. Really admirable.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. I just think that if someone wants to make an impact, it doesn't need to be a lot of things. It just takes one step to make a difference. And most people don't know how to take that step, so they don't. But if there was a way for people to help, I know they will. Just like CASA, they make it easy for people to help foster youth. They have a great program. It's easy and it's super important. And I think that's what helped me realize that change is possible. We have to create a path for it to happen. Thank you, ladies, for your time.
Sounds great. Thank you, JC.
And thank you, JC.
So, Jayne, can you tell us what training or classes or whatever you had to take to become a CASA? So somebody listening might be inspired by JC's story and the good that you do and want to actually pursue becoming a CASA?
So the word CASA actually stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate, volunteer for youth in foster care. In some states, it's called a guardian ad litem, and the program exists in every state. It was started by a judge in Seattle over 50 or more years ago, who in family court, he said, the foster care system is not working, and these kids need somebody looking out for them because they get lost. And so he asked for volunteers, and amazingly, he got, I think, hundreds at the time. And now that program has grown so that it is nationwide. There is a vetting process that you have to go through, the interview process. It's quite thorough. And then there's a training process that's approximately 6 weeks long, very doable for anybody that has a full-time job. I have 3 jobs like most people these days, and I have plenty of time to do it. At the very beginning, as you're learning what you need to do, once you're first assigned a case, it does take more time. But then once you figure out the system and the acronyms and the services and all that, then it can actually work pretty easily. When I first did the training, I had some trepidation because I thought, wow, is it going to be too hard? I'm going to be able to do it, whatever. There was another CASA, a board member of CASA LA, who basically said to me, if you make one thing in a child's life better, then it's worth it. I really got that, and that has been true. The way that a CASA works is they act as the eyes and ears of the court to help the child get the services that they need, to also listen to what the child wants and needs. Often they act as the educational rights holder to make sure that their schooling is what it should be. And as we were just saying a moment ago, for a foster kid, if they get moved from home to home to home, they will most usually get moved from school to school to school. So they often fall behind, as would any kid if they went to 3 different schools in 1 year, which can happen. The CASA does is they act as the hub of information as well. So the CASA is the only one who is talking to the social worker, the kid, the attorney, the court, the caregivers, the therapists, the doctors. CASA is often the only one who's talking to everybody. And in part, that is because the CASA is a volunteer position. Nobody owns the CASA. He or she is not paid to look after the child. In fact, that's one of the things that the kids often ask. They say, because they're so used to this team of people that are paid to look after them, and they often are not looked after well. Often the kids say, well, you're not paid to take care of me. You're not paid to be here. And, the kids are often in shock. That happened with me with my kid. She couldn't believe it, that I was just there because I wanted to make a difference and that I cared about her. What is very important about the CASA role is that very often the kids who are assigned a CASA are the most needy. And I'll give an example. In Los Angeles, where I am, there's 35,000 kids at any one time in the foster care system, and there's only 1,200 CASAs. So not every kid can get a CASA. Because there are not enough of us. And that's true all over the country. There also are not enough CASAs from all walks of life. And what I mean by that is that we don't have enough men. We don't have enough people of color. We don't have enough people of different sexual preferences or identities. And kids need to see people like them as adults. They need role models. So I encourage anybody out there who's listening, if you have a little bit of free time, like you need about 15 hours a month, become a CASA, or at least look into it. You can go through the training, see if it's right for you. You can talk to the National CASAGAL.org, and they have great information on their site, and you can find out where in your state or county you should apply to. And as I said, there is an interview process, and then there's a training process, and the training is really, really great, really thorough. I did mine pre-COVID, so it was in person on the weekends. Now they have it almost exclusively online, which is really convenient for a lot of people. But the most important part of it is just the fact that the kid has one person looking out for them who's really paying attention, one adult who's really paying attention. That can make all the difference. It can completely change their lives.
Right. What inspired you to become a CASA?
I've always volunteered with kids as an adult, at first with arts organizations, doing plays and things like that. And then about 5 years ago, my boyfriend started volunteering at Peace for Kids, which serves the foster care community in the Watts Willowbrook area of Los Angeles. And he started going on Saturdays to work with youth in foster care exclusively as a volunteer. That program, Peace for Kids, has been around for about 25 years. It's a fantastic organization. I saw what he was doing and I was like, I want to do this. I started to join him on Saturdays, and pretty soon I was looking around and I would hear this term CASA, CASA, CASA. And I thought, what's a CASA? And I looked into it, and I took what my boyfriend likes to say, I took the deep dive. I decided to become a CASA because I realized that I wanted more one-to-one with a kid. I saw how truly beneficial the CASA program is, and I wanted to make more of a difference. I thought I could probably do it, and it turns out I can. I love it. I think I've made a really big difference in my kid's life. She's about to be adopted very happily by a family member. It's taken a long time. She had several placements. I've met her when she was 6 years old, and she's had a lot of problems, a lot of behavioral issues, and a lot of heartbreak, a lot of disappointments. And now she's a very, very happy and well-adjusted 10-year-old who's doing great in school. I'm the ed rights holder, so I have made sure that she got all the correct schooling that she needed, the special attention. And now she's about to be adopted by a young cousin of hers who stepped up to take care of her.
That's great.
It's really, really great. And then I'll get another kid pretty soon.
How special for you to witness. Now, let me ask you, how do you not become so connected to the child that you want to just be the forever home for all of them?
Well, actually, that's an interesting point that you bring up, is that the role of the CASA is not to be the child's friend. The role of the CASA is to be the child's advocate. One of the things that a CASA has to pay attention to is making sure that they are not overly emotionally invested. And what I mean by that is the CASA needs to protect him or herself. There's lots of rules in place to help us do that. For instance, a child never comes to my home. She doesn't hang out with my family. I do activities with her. I go on outings with her. I spend afternoons with her, but I don't bring her into my personal life because that's not the role of a CASA. I'm not there as a big sister or as a family friend. I am there as her advocate. So even though she will always be in my life and I will always stay in touch with her, it's not in the same way that people think like an auntie or something. It's much more of a professional relationship. Even though she tells me that she loves me and I tell her that I love her, I'm not her mom. I'm not her aunt. I'm her CASA. And my role is to look out for her and to advocate for her. The fact that there is that distinction makes the work easier because otherwise I could imagine it would be really overwhelming. Other important part about it is that usually in most states, a CASA is assigned only one child. Sometimes you might get a sibling set, and that's important because very often kids are separated when they're removed from the home. There are some CASAs that will take 2 or 3 kids in order to work with them together. In general, the CASA only has one child at a time to focus on that child. And then once that child is placed appropriately, either goes into legal guardianship or gets adopted, then the CASA will be assigned another child if he or she chooses to continue. And most of us do because the work is so rewarding. It's so important. As I said, you can save a child's life. But there's one other thing that JC mentioned that's I think is really important to bring up as well. Foster kids are thought of as problem children very often. They are always portrayed as the criminals, the victims, the kids that are going to get in trouble. And the reality is that these are kids who, by no fault of their own, are failed by their families and then very often failed again by a system that is meant to safeguard them, the foster care system, which is profoundly broken. And kids get lost. As you heard with JC, she went from foster home to foster home to foster home. Now, you can tell just by listening to JC, she's not a typical kid. She was hurting and she was lost and she just needed somebody to look after her in a fair and good way. And she didn't get that until she was almost 16 years old. One of the missions of Peace for Kids is to change the narrative about foster children and how they're portrayed, not only in the media, but in society in general. The truth is they're just kids who need care and protection and love, just like most kids. And very often they don't have it. They don't have any of that. And I believe as a person in this world today, especially, whatever we can do for our youth, it's just about the most important thing to secure a better future for them. As I said, I found the work very, very valuable. And as most people say, when you volunteer, very often you get as much out of it as the people you're helping. And that's certainly been true of me. It's changed my life. It's changed the way I look at things. And that's in part why I launched my own podcast. And I named it Bonus Babies, by the way. I didn't name it At-Risk Kids or Problem Foster Youth, Tales from the Foster Care Hell or something. I named it Bonus Babies because a lovely woman whom I know named Dory Woods has fostered over 32 children in 26 years. And she's a warm and loving foster mom. And she's really taking care of kids really, really well. And she calls her kids bonus babies. Bonus babies is what she calls them. Not foster kids or foster youth, the problem kids or at-risk kids or that scoundrel or whatever. She calls them bonus babies because she wants to empower them and let them know that they're wanted, that they deserve to be here, that they're bonuses. And I think it's a really important message.
Yeah, I listened to that episode and I found that to be fabulous as well, the bonus babies.
I'm in my second season of Bonus Babies. At least half of the stories that I have heard from kids in care have been kids who've saved themselves, who reached out to adults who did not look after them. But like JC, went to a cop station on her own and saved herself. Like Melanie, who reported her abuse to the police, and that cop also believed her and said, all right, let's put this guy in jail. And she put her own father in jail for abusing her. That is also true of another guest of mine. Vaughn, at 4 years old, threw himself out of a third-story window because his mother was using him as a punching bag. He saved himself. My podcast has those stories, but it also, in much the same way a CASA works, I talk to attorneys and therapists and social workers, all the people involved in looking after youth in foster care, to give a 360 view of what's happening in the foster care system today, which, as I've said, is failing our kids. And my goal is to create awareness about that and to ideally enact positive social change. And the last thing I'll say is that if there's anybody listening right now who's thinking that they might want to be a foster parent, please do look into it because we need good foster parents. It's essential for the well-being of these kids who are failed by their biological families, that they are taken in by loving and caring, responsible adults who show them a better way, who help them to grow up into healthy and happy adults. So foster parents are very, very, very much needed. CASAs and foster parents, you're out there, come on in. We need you. We need you. We need you.
Absolutely. What do you think is the number one reason people say, oh, I could never be a foster parent?
There's one guest of mine. Her name is Dina Murray. She and her husband fostered dozens of children, and they ended up adopting 12 or 13, I believe. And she's very unusual. The way she describes it is that she had love in her heart to give. She and her husband had love in their hearts to give to children, and they knew that there were children out there that needed them. And I think if you have it in you to want to love a child who is not loved, you can save a child's life. And I can't think of anything better to do than to save a child's life. There are so many kids in need. 650,000 at any one time in this country, in the United States alone. 650,000 kids who get lost in foster care. Only some of them will end up being reunited with their families. Most of the kids are removed from the home because of neglect. And it's often because the parents can't afford to take care of them. The mom's working 3 jobs and the kids are home, they're looking after each other, and somebody reports the fact that there's 3 kids under the age of 10 alone at home. And then CPS is called, Child Protection Services, and the kids get removed from the home. Very often the mom, they have to complete all kinds of programs and get all kinds of training in order to get the kids back. And sometimes it's really, really difficult to do. People think also that they say, oh, but foster kids, oh, they're so difficult. They're not difficult. They're just kids. That's it. They're just kids. Yes, some of them have more needs than others. What they mostly need is love, consistency, a safe place, food on the table, warm clothing, and a loving environment so that they can grow and prosper.
I really appreciate you sharing all of this information with us today so you can hear the love and the passion that you have.
It wasn't until I became a CASA that I really got that foster kids are superheroes. They are amazingly adaptable, resourceful, resilient. And the fact that even some of them make it through a terrible system, because the foster care system is a terrible system. The fact that even some of those kids make it through is just because they are amazing. They are superheroes. They are the real superheroes. Thank you very much for letting me talk about it today. The CASA program is a really important program. I hope your listeners out there become interested, and I hope there's others out there that want to become foster parents because there's a tremendous need.
Absolutely. And I want to also give a big thank you to Jaci for coming on and also being my special guest and sharing her story with us. And again, Jayne, thank you so much for being here. This is Jen Lee with the I Need Blue podcast. Remember, you are stronger than you think.